Now let's see one after the other things. In we saw requirement study and analysis and planning. What is a requirement study? Earlier we saw testing life cycle with the study of client's requirement. Okay, based on the specification, whatever we have has come from the client, this will be prepared. A requirement study, and then understanding of the requirement is very essential for testing the product. See, as yesterday I told you about an example. Customer would have told you A, and the BA would have come up with A, and you must have interpreted as I, and finally your output of the product would be something different. Understood? So to avoid all those kinds of miscommunication and misunderstanding, it is very much essential that you need to understand the requirements or the spec what is provided by the customer and the client. Okay, so that is what the requirement study. And nextly, analysis and planning. What is this analysis and planning? This is what we saw in the test planning. So what are the objectives? So I said in scope and out scope. What are there for this release? So sometimes they would say, let me just open my flow chart again. So the customer would come up and tell you for this particular release, for the next month release, we will have customer details, but there are some few functionalities which can also be clubbed for account details, which we can release, they would say. But so what we will do, as per the expectation of the customer, we would have prepared a test plan, and tomorrow they would come and tell you, just please put on the account details module some functionality. We'll just have this getting released in the second phase. So let's go with the customer details alone. So what we can do is we can say in scope, what is there in the in scope? I'm just typing, please take a look. So in scope, I will say what is there. We have customer details module and functionality, and out scope is what? We will not do anything with account details module. So there should not be any kind of testing to be carried out in accounts detail module. You understood? So these kinds of detail, you'll have to make it very clear. Why is it very important? Let me tell you, as a tester, even if you say yes or no verbally, ensure you are documenting each and every communication that is happening between you and the developer and the client and the customer and with your project manager. As a tester, you have see, usually the trend is like, no one will believe the tester, because we guys have got a seal, and they have given us an identity that we are the guys who always find fault, even if it is not, if it is correct. Okay, so they would not accept when you go with a defect, or when you go with your understanding of your requirements or what you heard. So what I would advise you is, as a tester, it is always very much essential that you need to document each and everything that you communicate verbally. You understood? So your documentation would be a great support in your testing career. And not only in testing career, see, let me tell you a real-time scenario as well. So the real-time scenario as well, if you do not have any kind of document, this would also affect your appraisal in the downline. Why, I would explain you. Okay, Chitapu is asking in scope and out scope. What is that in scope and out scope? Okay, see, I just explained you. In I would say for customer detail, I'm taking the same example. Customer detail is a module which I would say this would be released in second week. Okay, and account detail will be released in fourth week. Okay, so what I would be doing when I prepare a test plan, so as of now, the tester have to release the product on the second week. The customer details should go live. Okay, so now during I prepare a test plan, I would say for this release we will be concentrating only on customer details module functionality, which means this customer detail module functionality is only for the scope for this particular release, and we will not be touching the account details functionality And out of scope is no need to go and do testing for this release. This can be considered for the next release. You understood? That is called the out scope and in scope. So the product which we are going to do, or the functionality that we are going to test for this release, is called for in scope. Out of scope is what? This is not going, we are going to test for this release. This is put on hold and can be considered for the next release, and that's what we call it as out scope. Are you clear, Chitapu? Okay, so in out scope, nothing but the testing objective and the coverage. What is that you're going to cover for this release? That's what we call it as the in scope and out scope. And overall schedule. As a tester, you will have to make an estimation. Okay, what is that estimation all about? So your estimation must be, so what would be the time that you guys will take? Okay, so when I talk about estimation, in other words, it is overall schedule. So you have to draft a plan. As a project manager, you will draft a plan and you would say, and test case development. So how long it would take? Okay, test case development, I would say 3 days. And then test case execution, that is 4 days. Okay, and then you understood. So in case of any defect, so that also you have to plan. So what would be the fixing time? So yesterday we saw about in defects some priorities. Remember priorities. So which would be like high level, high, medium, and low. So you have to give up your estimation. So high, within what is the turnaround time for fixing? I said 24 hours. And some companies, they'll give you very short, less than 24 hours. Some companies, they provide you just 2 to 4 hours time. Okay, and medium, it depends on the business criticality. Medium, they'll say 2 days, and low must be 4 days to 6 days. Okay, so you have to consider all those things while giving your estimation or your overall schedule, and then you have to tell your customer, since we have involved all these kinds of activities, and since this would take so much of time and days, our testing schedule will take around, let's say, 30 days. Okay, so that is the overall schedule. In other words, you have to prepare an estimation. This would be done by your project lead or your project manager. Okay, so this is the overall schedule that we need to do. So this comes under analysis and planning. Now comes the next, very, very, very important. So as you are now, few people are still as working as a QA. It would be better if you guys can get involved, aligned with your QA or lead or your manager to understand this estimation on a real-time scenario. So this would help you out to have a basic knowledge on how you can groom up yourself for the next level. Okay, and now third one, what is another planning that we will do? Resources required and including necessary training. Okay, so when you talk about necessary training, some guys, they would be very skillful in domain knowledge. They would be they'll be an expert in domain knowledge, but when it comes to communication, that would be another hurdle for them. Okay, so how is that communication? In communication, so there are different types. One is cross culture, and then your attitude. Okay, what is that attitude? The way you question your customers, or let's say your project management, I'll say PM, and your team. It is not only the way you question, the way you respond, okay, or communicate. See, as a tester, I told you your attitude must be good. Okay, to your communicate to your customers, PM, and team. I'll tell you, in testing team, since most of the people didn't have a proper attitude in attending to the customer or to the project management and team, and they were not able to proceed, have a good pace in their career. It's because of their attitude. They might be very good in their domain skills. Okay, and let me just give you one example. I was in South Africa for some time, and when I took over as a service delivery manager, I had around the Africans were around 60 people in my team. where 5 were managers. So as usual, I was just writing out a mail, okay, sending out a mail saying with a word saying ASAP, as soon as possible, which is very common in India as well as in US too. We used it, write it. But when I sent a mail in such ASAP, and they consider it as an unparliamentary word, and they think that it is a degrading word for them, and that was raised as an issue where people can go to the labor court. You understood? So that when I talk about the trainings, it is not only on the domain. You have to be skillful and to understand what are the cross-culture barriers, and main thing is the way that you get along with your team, irrespective of be your customers, your project management, or within your own team. You understood? So you need to have this kind of training. So let me give one more example. I had a team in India where I was working for one big company, was my client. Okay, and those guys, they were very good in domain knowledge, but their communication was so pathetic. And the customer was saying something, and these guys were giving something, and it totally was messed up, and the project was closed. You understood? And finally, the company had to fire entire QA team. So when you communicate, ensure you have a proper communication. If you are not able to understand or follow the customer, take a pause, ask him for more clarification, and then after your verbal communication is over, draft a mail, send him as a document. This is my understanding, please correct me if I am wrong. This you have to start before your testing activity begins. You're clear? So when we talk about the resources required, I'm also talking about people who are having having some more experiences. When you go to this people management, these are the main things that you'll have to consider. We'll talk about this much more in our team collaboration. Okay, so you'll have to also plan for the testing, what are the resources required, and what is the necessary training that you'll have to give for the trainers, which would be analyzed in our planning stage. Next, roles and responsibilities of the team member. Now I have got my team. What is the role and responsibility of the team member? Even that has to be planned properly. Today in most of the company, they just hire people and then they'll fire them. Then they would say the project was in pipeline 3 months back, that's the reason we hired you, but now project is moved to some other company, so we are firing you. So this hiring and firing is happening everywhere across the globe now. So what is the reason? Because the companies or the stakeholders do not have a proper focus or a vision as to what we are going to do with the team, and they just play around with the testers or the IT guys, and finally they have to look for another company. You understood? So once when a project comes into picture, it is the responsibility of the project manager or the senior guys to derive the roles and responsibilities of the team members. So what we do, this we will prepare in our planning. Understood? These roles and responsibility of the team members will be written down in the test planning. I'll show you the test plan in a short while. Now, what is the other activity that we do in software testing life cycle? It is the test case design and development. So what are the things that we do? Test case design and development is nothing but it is a test case writing. Okay. So what is that we do? Component identification. What is that component identification? You will have to understand the modules. So let me take out the modules. This is one component, this is one component, this is one component, or in other words we call it as a module as well. You will have to identify the each and every module and what are the functionalities, what and all needs to be tested, all your negative scenarios and your positive scenarios, all those things you'll have to think outside the box. Okay, so for example, let me just give a brief example. What is it outside the box and inside the box? So assume that I have a calculator to do some addition. Okay, now I am saying it has to give me 5 4. So this should give me a result of 9. Okay, so now you do some testing here. So what is the requirement now? I am putting two values. Okay, this is A, let's call this as B, A and B, and the result. Okay, I'm just giving a brief explanation just for you to understand. So we have A and B. So A is what? The first text, B is the second text, and adding to this, you have to get a result. Okay, this is the result. Now, result is 9. Okay, so you are asked to write some test cases. What you will be doing now? So the requirement is what? When I enter two values, I should get the result. What is thinking outside the box? What should happen if I enter outside the box? What should happen if I enter A and R? So meaning I am trying to enter some alphabetical characters. Do you think it will add? It will not sum up, correct? So it should throw out an error. You understood? If as a tester, if you are just trying to test only with the number 6 plus 6, 12, which is known very well. The software is built for that only. But what is our motto? My motto is to break down some or the other that it doesn't work. So now I gave 0. Sorry, now I gave some characters. It gave me some 0 value. So now let me just enter some special character. Let's see what happens. So even then it is also showing 0, which means the system is not showing you any error, or it is not throwing out any message when you enter any value apart from number. You understood? That's the outside box, thinking outside the box. If you just keep testing according to the functionality and the requirement whatever is giving, that even the developer can do. But as a tester, you will have to test all the possible scenarios where your motto is to break down and ensure the system doesn't work. You understood? So you have to write such test cases. So whatever I've given now, test the special characters and the characters whatever given is called as a negative testing. Okay, and whatever the values that I gave is called the positive testing. You understood? The positive values. Oh, sorry. You understood? 6 plus 3. So this is the positive scenarios, and the negative scenarios what I gave was this. So what is this? So this is one character, and now it is showing something. The formula you type contains an error. This is a system defined error. You understood? So which means the system is broken. Now you can go tell the developer, boss, whatever you have developed, when I enter this character, it is not moving out. The system is not doing anything. So please fix the error. So what the developer will do, and then he will write some error handling. Then he would say, please enter only numerical value. Don't enter text or special characters. You understood? So this is how your intention should be. All your intention is to some or the other to break the system. It does not work. And your test cases while writing should be like this. So we will see much more detail when we come to this test case. This, for your understanding, I have just gave you this. So how are we going to write? Our test specification design is nothing but you have to write your test cases. And what is this test specification review? Review is a very important activity that a testing team should have. What is that review? See, for example, I have written some 100 test cases, okay, and let's say Priyanka has written some 100 test cases, and now Chitapu is there, and he may not know anything all about the application. So whatever the test cases that Priya has written, Chitapu has to execute all the test cases. So before executing, during the time of his execution, he has got some. I was not able to understand the test steps what Priya has written. So again, what you need to do, you'll run up to Priya and ask what is that you have written. And so see, once when the execution is begun, you can't be wasting time and going and asking them for clarification. So what you have to do is, as soon as the test case development is prepared, test cases are prepared, ensure there is an internal review happening within your team. You understood what I'm saying? So what is that review all about? Whatever the test cases that Priya has written, let's talk about Raji is there. So Raji will do a review based on the requirement specification and the test cases whatever Priya has written. They will do a review and say this is all correct. Yes, this requires some changes, and the test steps have to be revisited, and there are some fine tuning that will happen in the review. Why we are doing this? We are avoiding the wastage of timings, because once when test execution is ready started, you are responsible to answer the client on the progress of your test execution, because you are bound to a timeline. So you will have some 2 to 3 days where you'll be having only on the test executions. So ensure that whenever a test cases is developed, ensure there is a review happen within your team. You understood? So that's the review. Now in test execution, we have code review, test execution, and evaluation, performance, and simulation. So we'll talk about more on this. Again, code review. When you talk about this test execution, sometimes if you are involved in unit testing, okay, if you know something about the development, obviously you will have to do some code review. If you are not progressing towards a unit testing, and if you don't have a development knowledge, don't worry about that you can obviously take the help from the developer, and developer will help you out on the code review. But I would suggest it would be better if you can have some development knowledge. Try to enhance your skill. I'm not saying it is a must, but if you can enhance your development knowledge, it would be an added advantage as you progress ahead in your career life. See, nowadays testing job is also very challenging. So, and the companies, they look for people who are very skillful and who have got some extra added skills. Okay. So which means it would be, it is my own experience I'm saying. So try to have some kind of coding knowledge, be it C or C++, just to understand what they have written. Okay, so which would help you out for a code review, because once if you are held up with some of the problems, and you may have to no need to run to the developers. Supposedly, if you are sitting in US and your developers are sitting in India, so you will have to wait until the overlap of timing happens, and then you will have to ask them and inquire them. Rather, if you have some coding knowledge, you yourself can do some code review on that to avoid, and you can save your timings. Okay. And now test execution and evaluation. What is a test execution evaluation? So yesterday we saw about the actual result and the expected result and the actual result. You remember? So that is evaluation. So your expected result should match your actual result should match the expected result. What is that? I hope I'm not confusing you. Let me repeat again. What is that? Here, now you tell me what is the expected result. I'll write here. So I'm just testing two values, my expected result, and then I'm typing actual result. Okay. I'm talking about the evaluation. So now I'm giving two values. Now what is the two value I'm going to give? 4 plus 3. So when I'm writing this test cases, when I write the test cases before the application has come into my hand, I would say I have entered 4 plus 3. It should give a value of 7. Okay, that is the expected value. Now assume if there is a problem in the software, and now the value is coming as 1.3. So what is the value? 1.3. So this is a bug. So what is actually required from the customer? What is actually required from the customer? I should get the sum of these two values. So when I was writing my test cases, the expected result, what I expected was 7, but what is the actual result? Now it is 1.3. So now you are doing some evaluation, but my expected result is not matching the actual result. So what I should do? Raise a bug. You understood? So raise a bug. You understood? So you have to raise a defect, send it to the developer, and get that fixed. You got my point? So now let me just highlight on the first point, code review. So if you know some of the, if you are able to understand why is this error coming, why is 1.33 coming, if you have some knowledge on the code, you can simply go and check out the code, and you can check out saying, oh, instead of summing up, these guys have given a division. That is the reason for the error, and that is a mismatch on the expected result and the actual result. So obviously now you can tell the developer Boss, the coding what you have written is, it is for addition, but rather you have written it for division. Please change your coding and send me back the application, you can say. You understood? So this is the time where if you have some coding knowledge, your code review will help and even make the job easier for the developer. Guys, you understood what is that code review? If you are not understanding, please let me know, I'll explain you again. Now, so you understood what is that code review and what is this code test execution and evaluation. Performance simulation. See, what is the performance simulation? Here in your test execution, you are checking out the performance of your application. You understood? You are checking out the performance of the application, how it is running with one user, and what is the performance when it is logged in with 2 to 3 or more users. You understood? So that is what we are doing. So here when it comes to simulation, sometimes you may not have the real application in your picture, but rather they would give you some certain functionalities would be developed, and that would have been given to you in your hands for starter testing. Okay, for example, let me tell you again, come back to my sheet. It is a more or less like a simulator. Okay, it would not be the real-time application, but rather they would have developed in customer detail. They would have given you with customer name, his address, customer ID. Okay, so on these three things they would have developed and sent you. Please ensure you are able to enter the customer name, you are able to enter the address, and the customer ID is auto-generated. You understood? So they would have given a ad hoc module or an application they would give you and ask you to do this, do some testing on this, and then other features are included like phone number, then office address, okay, residence, then SSN number. So all these things, these features would come later point of time. So initially in the customer details they would have given you and ask you to do something on this, okay, and then later once when this developed, then they'll include those features. You understood? It will be like a kind of a dummy project that they would give you and ask you to do some. Why are they giving is because so that you can also develop your test cases based on this dummy projects with whatever, or what you can call it as beta version. Let's call it as a beta version. They will send you like this and ask you to do some test case writing and see whether it is functioning or not. Okay, is what we call it as the performance and simulation. Then comes the test closure. So test closure, as I explained you earlier, it is the test summary report and the project documentation. So what is the test summary report? You have to explain. Okay, see guys, what you know the meaning of simulation, right? What is simulation? If you go for a car driving, though you may not be having the real-time car in your hand, okay, but they'll ask you to sit in a simulator and you will see a road on your big screen and they'll ask you to drive it. You understood? That's a simulator. It's a similar way. We have some applications, though the real-time applications may not be there since they are being developed, and as a start for the testers and for the customers to show how it may look like, they'll come up with a kind of a simulation mode or a kind of a beta version, and they'll say, please try to use this, see how it is there working and how do you feel, and let us know if there is anything to be changed in the layout or in the design and so on, is what is called as a simulation. So you guys understood what is test closure? As I explained you earlier, the test closure, all the test cases, that whatever that you have written, the number of test cases, and during the time of execution, how many test cases you executed, what was the status on that, whether all the test cases are passed, fail, okay, no run, and is there any defects pertaining to that particular test cases if it is failed, that, and all those things you have to prepare. Okay, so the number of execution, the number of test cases that are written, the number of defects that were raised, and in that defect what are the priority and the levels of the defect, high, medium, low, and have they been refixed, have they been worked out and retested, and how many defects are pending. So all those things you have, before the release of the project, you have to prepare this test summary report and hand it over to the client. You understood? And in the project documentation, you will be explaining what is the project all about. It is more or less like a user manual that you will be preparing for the users. Understand the users, the people who are going to use your project may not be well versed with the project, okay, well versed with the documentation. So it is the responsibility of the tester to prepare an user manual to make the customer feel comfortable as to how we have to use the product. So this user manual, you buy a car, you buy a refrigerator, your washing machine, everything they prepare, they give a user manual for you, even for our mobile phones. Okay, so that documentation, it would be the responsibility of the tester to prepare. You're clear? So once when you prepare your test closure, you have to prepare even these documents. Okay, now let me proceed to the next one. Test process analysis. Analysis done on the reports and improving the application's performance by implementing new technology and additional features. See, now is that we have done with the test closure report. Now we can also make an analysis. As a tester, you have a sole responsibility to give your suggestions, uh, to improvise the application's behaviors or the performance, or you can also come up saying you can include some new technologies. So since you can also ask the customers or suggest the customers to go for some, instead of going for Java, you can tell them to you can use .NET, or rather than going for SQL Server as a database, you can go for an Oracle. Okay, you can also just give your suggestion as to why you are suggesting this technology and why is this improvised. Okay, so when I was working for one company in 2001, we were using a backend as SQL Server, which was not so robust during those time when Microsoft came up with the SQL Server. Okay, and so we provided a project manager during that time. He gave a suggestion saying, instead of going for an SQL Server, why don't we go for Oracle? Okay, Oracle 2000 during those times. So that would be robust and that would be very convenient, and data security was more during those times. And later, and that was considered during the board of meeting, and then we shifted from SQL Server to Oracle. It was a long process. Okay, so this kind of analysis, obviously a tester can do. The company, they give a red carpet welcome for such kind of suggestions from the testers, and those guys having innovative thoughts, you will be honored a lot in the company as well as everywhere. You're clear? So this kind of test process analysis can be given, but it is optional.